Hello, good evening, everyone. So we called our meeting to order during our closed executive session, so we can begin our meeting. Before I do, I just want to turn really quickly to our Board Attorney, Mark Toscano, to just amend one item on the closed agenda items.
Thank you, Madam President. Just in addition to the items that were listed on the agenda that was pre-printed prior to the board's meeting, the board also discussed, for exception number 7, case number 02-18-1283. Other than that, everything else was accurate.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Toscano. Okay, so I do want to just start off by saying good evening. Welcome to everyone who came to the meeting tonight. I know we have a number of people who may be here for the first time, or this may be your first board meeting. So I do want to just quickly explain how our board meetings work for those of you who may be just here for your first time. So generally, our board meetings are meant to conduct our regular board business, and you'll see that it's generally comprised of presentations that are made to the board, and we also have a voting portion of our meetings. If members of the public want to address the board or raise any concerns to the board during the meetings, those are done through the public comment portions of the meeting, and there are 2 of those. There's one at the beginning before the voting portion of the meeting, and then one again at the end. At those public comment portions of the meeting, each person will be able to speak for up to 3 minutes. You can only speak once during each public comment portion, and you can't assign your time to someone else. Also, I just want, again, because it's 3 minutes, just be aware, and I see a number of you here today that we are pretty strict about that. We will usually let you know when your 3 minutes is coming up, so just wanted to make sure that you're aware. It is timed, so you will know when that's coming up. While the public comment period it's not really designed as a question and answer session, I do want to just make sure you're all aware that we are all listening, we're all taking comments under consideration and taking notes with everything you're all telling us. And also, while there's no requirement to respond to comments or questions raised at the meeting today, a response may be provided at the end of the public comment portion, either one or the first or the second, if the comment or question is the kind that can be answered or addressed immediately. Okay. And if not, a follow-up communication may be sent at a later time if warranted. So just wanted to make sure you all aware. So again, thank you for being here, and I will turn it, Dr. Adderall, any additional questions or comments? So the first presentation on our agenda is the 2021-2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. So we have our auditor from PKF O'Connor Davies here, Mr. Cleland, who will give us that report.
Good evening, and thank you for inviting me here tonight to present the results of the 21-22 fiscal year audit. Here we are in March, and I think we'd all like to see the reports issued much more timely. However, as I explained the last couple of years, we are still waiting for the same information from the state that was only provided to us sometime in the latter part of January. So what was provided to you this evening is the bulk of the report. It's the same report we went over, I believe it was in either January or December with Finance Committee at length. And the numbers really haven't changed from them other than adding the information that the state's provided. And we will get a final report bound out to you by the 17th, which is a new deadline by the state. So before I go over a topside review of the year under audit, I want to thank the superintendent and Chris and Bonnie, Derek and Lou and the rest of the team for providing us with all the information we needed to get through the audit and to be able to render an opinion on your financial statements. As I mentioned, the audit is done. The deadline was moved from December 5th to January and then to March 17th based upon the timing of the information being made available. First thing I want to mention is that the Certificate of Excellence Financial Reporting was awarded again to the school district for the 14th consecutive year, something to be very, very proud of, as the district and the finance office continues to display excellence in their financial reporting, which is shown throughout the audit process. The opinion we will be placing on the audit this year is a clean opinion. It's also known as unmodified. When you do look at it, you'll just see that it's a little bit different format than it's been in the past. The AICPA has decided now, hey, let's put the opinion first because that's what everybody looks for, where in the past it was buried in the middle of it. So it's the same exact report, just moved around in different format. From a financial perspective, we spent some time looking at your major applications, which would be your purchasing, accounts payable, revenue, and payroll, and we did not find any exceptions or items identified during the course of the audit. We also spent a lot of time looking at your federal and state grants. Obviously, with a lot of money floating around from the CARES Act and ESSER funds and so forth, there was quite a bit of funds that were spent from that, and we did look at the internal controls and compliance on how that was spent, and we did not identify any exceptions there either. From a financial position, you're in very, very good financial shape. As has been the case in past years, you were very prudent in putting funds aside for your various reserves. You have reserves set aside for capital, for maintenance, and for emergency, and for unemployment. And then you also have funds that are in excess of the 4%, which will be utilized in the 23-24 budget. And again, just reiterating, the district is in very, very good shape, and there are no findings this year to report upon. Therefore, you will not have to accept a corrective action plan, and Chris will not have to follow up and do anything about it. So that's always good news. And again, thank you very much for allowing me to present tonight, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have from the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cleland. Are there any questions from board members? Okay. Thank you. Thank you for coming out tonight. Okay, so now we will turn to the first opportunity for public comments. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. This public comment period shall be limited to 60 minutes. Are there any public comments? You can come up to the podium.
Hello. Hello. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Avanti Ganitkar from 3 Chandler Court, Plainsboro. I want to start by saying that these comments are my own and not generated by ChatGPT. As a first-time speaker at this forum, I want to congratulate the board and Dr. Aderhold for seeing our kids through the worst of the pandemic, so thank you. I stand before you today as the parent of a high schooler, like many others here, to implore you to implement a late high school start for our school district. As of October 5th, 2022, the CDC, as well as several medical practitioners and research experts, have guidance in place recommending schools to implement a late start. Governor Murphy has said that he is open-minded to the idea and believes that it's a better way to go to start later. In fact, 4 or 5 high schools in New Jersey have already embarked on this journey, namely Princeton, Ridgewood, a couple. The question then is not of if, but when and how we will implement this. Of course, there are bound to be problems and challenges, but everything that can be counted does not always count, and everything that counts cannot always be counted. There are enough indicators of our district's strong history to continue. There are enough indicators of our district's strong history of academic success and excellence, but where are the measures of our kids' mental health and well-being? Let us work together to balance the two. Parents, healthcare professionals, and school officials all have a role to play. As parents, we encourage our kids to develop good sleeping habits, turn in early, and strive to achieve a healthy balance between school and their extracurricular activities. I strongly believe that the district can supplement this balance with a late school start, something entirely within its control. Let us not be the proverbial ostrich here and assume that this is not an issue for our school district. Let's work on and make the change together. This will go a long way in meeting one of our district's stated goal of maintaining a supportive culture and build structures of health, safety, and well-being of the whole child. As I strongly urge the board and the superintendent to implement the late school start, I would specifically like to hear opinions from the members and Dr. Adderholt both, not just as members of the board, but more importantly, their personal opinions as parents concerned about the mental well-being of kids. We are acknowledged as a high-achieving school district that takes pride in its continuing tradition of academic achievement. A late school start will demonstrate our focus on the students' mental well-being as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Hi, good evening. I'm Deepa Subramanian from Plainsboro, having one rising high schooler at WWP. Respected board, parents, and teachers who are here this evening. I'm here in support again about the late start and, of course, to advocate good health for my child and for many other children who are not having enough time every morning to even have a meal, a good breakfast, or they always rush in the morning, and it's not really the ideal way to start the day. With the years of middle school, what I have really witnessed is some great learnings at school, blossoming friendships, and of course, a lot of homework. So the homework, typically some days, it takes about 10:30, 11, and the next morning is definitely not a nice one. So we're in a rush, no breakfast, and we're able to probably drop the child off, but still basis what they can do around 6:30 is not really the breakfast that we would have had, not really the ideal mornings that we would have had. And so we really want, as a parent group, we have done a little bit of a survey within about 2% of the parent group, and we have some great results for you. But of course, we understand that whenever you commission this and you will run your own survey, the survey results show about 86% need the change. They've asked for the change. And out of which 54% clearly say they want more sleep time. About 24% have said it's clearly because they're not able to feed their children. And the nourishment, the lack of it, is really seen in the child and the performance, whether it be it in sport or in their physical stamina or in their performance at school. So basically, for academic success and for their good health, I would echo all the words that my friend just spoke before this, and I hope the board and parents here will also support this cause and take necessary action. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Hi, my name is Naveen Hari. I live in Plainsboro, Quail Ridge Apartment. My son studies in the middle school, Grover Middle School, and a future high schooler. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Is it clear? Right. So I concur with all the parents who spoke before me regarding the delayed time schedule for high schoolers. Predominantly, I concur with mostly on the sleeping pattern as well as the breakfast and lunch. So what I see today with my son going to school is oftentimes he misses his breakfast and oftentimes he takes lunch in school. We were not able to prepare lunch for him, for that adequate time is not there for him to take it to the school, and oftentimes I see he comes home pretty tired. And when he comes home pretty tired, I don't see him, more focusing on studies, but he's always, putting on a lazy stroke, at home, right? And eventually what I see is his sleeping patterns is also getting changed. Morning at around 5:30, he wakes up, he gets ready, he puts everything on time, but with no breakfast sometimes, and with no lunch sometimes he takes out. He depends on the school canteen, to take his lunch over. So I definitely appreciate if you could take this as a consideration in taking a little bit timing adjustment for the schools will help a little bit improvement from our side to give the proper breakfast and lunch that will help his studies focus more on. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Any other comments?
Hello all, good evening to everybody. My son goes to a middle school.
Excuse me, if you could give your name and address before you speak.
Yeah, my name is Senthil Vasan. I live in Plainsboro.
Thank you.
My son goes to middle school. And, as many of my other parents have spoke about the late start, I'm here to support that. And for many reasons, they already explained, including the scientific reasons. And even my son, he wakes up at 5:30, which is dark for him. As soon as he starts the day, it is dark, which is really bogs him down every day, and he misses his breakfast sometimes, and he don't eat properly. The hygienic problem is there, and a lot of other things. I do not recollect right now, but I kind of request the board to consider this request for the late start, and hopefully I'll get some positive answers from your board. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Please.
Hi everyone, my name is Minal. I'm from Plainsboro. We've been living here for almost 15 years, I would say. My son goes to middle school. I can definitely say that it's not just like the waking up cycle and not having breakfast. I'm a healthcare professional. I'm a therapist by discipline. I'm a physical therapist. It definitely affects the physical ability of a kid as well as the social ability. When they have a lot of homework, they have activities. By the time they come home, they finish up their homework. It's almost like 10:30, 11. I don't think screen time is much of an issue, like we give him half an hour, 1 hour here and there. But when it's like waking up, it's like 5:36. He's not getting that enough sleep. So when the classes starts early in the morning, I see him, even if the days that he'll have breakfast, he'll wake up, he'll have breakfast, he'll go to his class. I can tell you, I went to his classrooms when they allowed the parents to be present, and I noticed like all the kids were like yawning, they were like laxing, and it was just like 7:30, 8 o'clock. And I'm like, oh my God, the energy level is already down. So I feel like we don't want to cut down on the school time, but at the same time, giving them a reasonable start time, maybe balancing the classroom sessions and cutting 5 minutes shorter, that may help, because I see like the ability of any kid in the middle school is very limited. Even in high school, like they have a very short span, and how do you make that efficient? Like, how do you allow them to pay attention to the classes that they're attending without losing focus so they're ready to look forward to going to the next class? I was speaking with one of the teachers during the later classes that they host, and the teacher was saying that it's towards the end, the kids are so tired that they're not even as focused. So, and those classes are also as important as the classes in the morning. So just looking at it from a holistic picture, we do want to make sure that it is not just the physical ability, but how are they going to be able to progress, and how is their mind and body going to work together? So, thank you.
Thank you. Any others?
Good evening, everyone. Today, I'm here as many
Excuse me, if you can give your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Smita, and I live in West Windsor, and my kid goes to middle school.
Could you
I'm
give
here
it?
today, like many other concerned parents out there, to support and put in a request to the board for a late start time for the school. Like I have heard, it's a commotion not only in their households, I think it's the same at my place, especially with the middle school and high school kids, in regards to missing their breakfast, missing their bus, or being tardy, all pointing to insufficient sleep. Breakfast being the most important meal of the day, but kids will skip it if it means not being tardy. My child will be starting high school next year, and keeping in mind the struggles of the college freshmen who graduated high school last summer, I think late start would definitely help the children in many ways. Like, with late start, children can get sufficient sleep to start their school day with an open and a calm mind. Kids get more involved in classrooms activities because they're more alert than sleepy. With late start, kids will have stress-free mornings, which in turn improves their physical and mental health, also boosting their individual academic performance. It will lead to less tardiness in attendance. With a well-rested mind, number of mood changes teens experience will also reduce, and it also reduces the risk for car accidents and injuries. The amount of homework, the time spent on homework, also would reduce because of better understanding of the subject as the kids are more alert in the classroom, in turn getting them to bed early, which helps reduce panic attacks, anxiety, and depression. And this list could go on and on and on. So before I end, I would like to say that I have full faith in the board that they will make every effort towards the late start schedule possible, because we all as parents wish for a child to not only grow academically, but also be happy and healthier. So let late start act as a relatively pain-free step in making schools healthier and a happier place for the students. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? And I just want to remind those who are still going to speak, if you can make sure you say your name and your full address before you speak. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rajarajan Virichetti. So my son is...
Address, sir.
Sorry?
Address, sir.
Yeah, I live in Plainsboro. So you need the full address?
Yeah, street
Okay,
address.
so I live in 128 Hampshire Drive, Plainsboro. So my son is in the 10th grade now. So I'm here to advocate the late start, but there are, I'm not sure about like how much time should be there for the late start. So however, I just want to mention a few things about it, because it should be left to the board actually. So there are a lot of research being already done. However, like my personal feeling is like it should not be just because we want to do the late start, it should not affect in other areas, right? So we give something to gain something. We have to make sure that it doesn't affect in other places, right? So I just want whoever is the deciding authority, just want to make sure they're mindful of that. So we just not for the sake of doing it, we don't want to do it. So the quality of the education is very important for the students. So my son doesn't have a problem right now. because the thing is like I'm trying to implement like, follow the discipline. So because we know that early rise is always good. So he goes to bed on time. That's what I recommend. So sometimes, yes, like other parents mention, sometimes he doesn't have a breakfast. I attribute that to the some other situations, right? So he could have had some other, or like more homework some days. Some days he's stressed out. It could be anything. So I'm not very sure about that. So that's why I still recommend late start, but it should be in a reasonable way. So make sure that it's not compromising their education. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Hello, my name is Hanif Payak. I live in 22 Bush Drive, Plainsboro. I'm also here to advocate for the late start for the high school and middle school. My daughter is in a middle school. She's in a Grover Middle School. She wakes up around 6 o'clock every day, and she hardly get almost 6 hours of sleep. All the studies says you need at least 8 to 9 hours of sleep. She doesn't get enough because of the lack of sleep. I'm not saying about my daughter, but lack of sleep generally based on the studies, it gives you a poor decision making, or decrease the memory functions, or probably your lower academic performance as well. So if they get a little bit more sleep, they can be do better attendance in the they pay attention in the class, they can have higher grades, and not last but probably there are few less accidents on the roads, right? There are 46 states in the U.S. right now supporting the late schools. Even in New Jersey, there are almost 10 plus school districts have either 8 a.m. or after 8 a.m. start time. And there are many other organizations who supports this particular late start. I have a list of it, and definitely if anything we need to I'm here to just request the Board of Education, and if anything we can help, or if you guys need any information or anything, we can work with you guys. And please, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Hi, my name is Lakshmi Arte. I reside at 10 Cardiff Court in West Windsor. I'm the mother of a middle schooler. She's in the 7th grade right now. First of all, I just want to say thank you to the board. I think you all did. The whole school district did a tremendous job protecting the health of our students throughout the pandemic, and that was not an easy feat. So from a parent, a heartfelt thank you. And this issue that we are discussing today, I look at it from a health standpoint as well, because our middle schoolers are, just beginning puberty, but that goes on for many years, even after they finish high school. And it's physical changes, mental changes, and all the pressure, the social and academic pressures that they face. So if more sleep can contribute to their well-being, I feel that is something that would be at least good to study and examine and see whether it's feasible or not. And that is my request to the board, that please take this up and let us see if we can bring about any improvement in the mental health of our kids. Just like you all protected them during the pandemic, let's see if we can do it again. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Greetings for the evening. My name is Makaran Bidwai, Princeton, New Jersey. I want to do a shout out to Ms. Stevenson, the union president. It's a coalition that we have to build to get this going. And I'm not speaking anything. I support Ms. Deepa Subramaniam, Ms. Avanti Kanitkar, and all the parents before me and all the parents after me. A person who is a counterpart of Mr. Arrowwood was going to come here, but he missed it. So he sent me a communique. I'm going to read it. And these people are ready to help us. This is Mr. Fitz, the superintendent of Ridgewood Public Schools. thank you for your interest in the Late Start program that's getting underway in the, I'm so sorry. I apologize. That's getting underway in the Ridgewood School District. I am pleased to offer you and your school district support as they explore this initiative. We are excited about implementing our program. Our program grew out of the interest of parents, citizens, staff, and therefore the union comes in picture, and members of the school board, all 9 of you, and obviously the superintendent. But he is the superintendent, so he's not counting himself. The program started with careful and detailed planning. It was guided by the medical sciences, and that's where it ends actually. There's no debate about it. We remained focused on the wellness of the students. We paid close attention to the data, cost of transportation, adjusting for athletics, impact on the staff, and outcomes for the district. The key of this initiative is thorough planning and full communication, I'm sure back and forth, with the stakeholders. And then he assigned himself Dr. Leonard Fitz, interim school superintendent, Ridgewood Schools District, Ridgewood, New Jersey. He was definitely going to come. He asked me if he can come next time, and I said yes. And the principal of high school, Ridgewood High School, he says we are being bombarded with calls by parents like you whose districts are slow to adopt, and so we are going out and making this proposition. I was trying to get Senator Gopal here because his bill is facing obstruction and opposition and sabotage. That's what he told me. Somebody in his staff told me. So let's work. School is important, but 4 hours is all it's required. And tomorrow morning, another school superintendent is calling me at 8 o'clock. I'm reaching out. I'm going to turn every stone possible. We are going to make it work as a team. Thank you for your cooperation.
Thank you. Any other comments? So, I'm not seeing any more coming up. I just want to make sure I don't miss anyone. Are there any other comments? Okay. Thank you. I will close the first public comment portion of the meeting then. Sure. Okay.
Thank you to all the parents. Thank you to all the parents and community members that came out this evening to bring your concern to the Board of Education and the administration regarding late start time. In the comments that we heard a variety of different responses and reasons for such a start time, whether it's meals or academic success or mental health, or whether it's hygiene or other. The science community, the CDC and the APA, the American Pediatrics Association, have both come out with studies talking about the importance of sleep for teens. I don't think there's anyone on this Board of Education or in the administration that would work to refute that, right? So yes, there is some science. There is science backing longer sleep time for students. Doesn't necessarily mean late start. It just means more sleep. So let's take a couple of these. With respect to some of the other communities, there's a handful of communities out there that have studied this and have looked to move their start time. Ridgewood, one of the more recent, Highland Park, also more recently. Princeton was mentioned, and the Chathams are 4 notable districts that have made those. They have certain things in common with respect to the size of the community, walking schedules of elementary, limited busing at the elementary level, smaller towns, walking proximity for lunches, and Ridgewood I know well as I grew up there. The interim superintendent I don't know directly. I look forward to talking to him tomorrow when I call them. But what I would say is he's been there for less than a year, so I'm not sure what the planning methodology went into that decision in Ridgewood. But they've made a decision to further study, and the board has endorsed the concept of moving to later start time. I don't believe they actually made the move to adopt later start time. Pre-pandemic, I want to say it was summer of 2019, Governor Murphy at the time commissioned, through the Department of Ed, a pilot study that was to be done. The Department of Ed unfortunately dragged its feet with actually putting out the proposal of participation in the pilot. It came out in, I want to say, early January of 20 for a deadline of the first week of March. You might recall that time period in our lives, right? So by the first week of March, no one was applying. We were watching what was happening overseas. We were seeing the concerns about COVID in the United States. There was mass panic. We were calling as superintendents for guidelines and rules about how do you move to virtual and closure. There were no rules on that. And that pilot never happened, right? The state never put the pilot out there. So there's been no research study done from the Department of Ed and state of New Jersey. We have called on, when I say we, advocate organizations like NJASA and Garden State Coalition and others have called on the governor's office and the legislature to consider restarting a pilot so they could actually study what the impacts are and what the changes are. It's not a simple change, and so please don't take any of the comments I'm about to make to say that the administration, the board, is against it. But when we have looked at this matter over time, we do see a difficult challenge with making the decision. Start time requires a fundamental change to the schedules of the district. One of two things happens, right? The elementary schools have to move early, or they have to move extraordinarily late. And there's ramifications based on those decisions, whether it's parent work schedules, whether it's child care considerations, whether that's relying on the high school or middle school student for your little ones, or whether that's extended day care at the conclusion of the day. There are ramifications to moving the schedule. There's another consideration, which is you put everyone on the same schedule. And if you were to do that, you're looking at 15 to 20 million in transportation increases. Hopewell studied the transportation impact and then decided not to move forward with a change of start time as a result of the transportation costs that they went through. And they did that when Dr. Smith was the superintendent, when they looked at that work. So there's a significant transportation challenge, a significant logistical challenge for families, whether that's little ones getting picked up in elementary when your high schoolers are. So 6:50 at the end of the driveway in kindergarten. And that's what we're talking about if we move early. Or 9:45, 9:50, now you have a work schedule challenge for all your elementary parents. So then you have this idea of how long should the periods be. I heard one person say, take a couple minutes off of each period. Well, it doesn't work at the high school. You lose credit, right? You have to meet your Carnegie units, or your 40 minutes minimum. Now, our 60-minute classes with the rotation, you have to have 135 class periods. So you have to meet certain minute requirements with respect to meeting the curriculum in order to award credit. So if someone is absent or chooses to be absent and, let's say, protests and doesn't come to AM classes because they want to make a stand, the student could lose credit for graduation purposes. And because of the rotation, they could lose it in multiple classes when you get to the high school. So there's that concern. When you think about start time, we also then have to think about the staff, the availability of staff to come to school when those times have. So it's a fundamental change there. Doesn't mean it's a reason not to do it. It just means it's a consideration that requires planning and time. Athletics and the schedules are something to be mindful of in the after school. Again, not a reason not to do it, but is something that you will have children that will be missing school, because districts that have later start times, what they find is in order to get to athletic events, extracurricular events, the students are missing the last period of the day to go. So with the rotation, they miss less, but at the high school level, but they do miss. It has impacts to families, like Pemberton, for instance, changed their start time, and after 1 year, they changed it back. And what they found was there was major child care considerations in their community that does not have lights on some of their roads, so they did have safety considerations with little ones, and it's more of a, again, different factors, different communities, more of a rural community, some farmland, some military bases, whatnot, but what they found was there was no street lights, so it was a safety consideration, especially with no sidewalks in some of the community. Again, things that we have to think about. When it comes to homework, someone had mentioned, several of you had mentioned homework, working late, dedication to academics. In the 14 years that I've been here as superintendent, assistant superintendent, deputy superintendent, and not going anywhere anytime soon. So for the near future, what you're going to find about homework is homework doesn't get any easier as they get older. And as you start seeing the schedules, the honors, the APs, the various number of APs, the homework restrictions that are put in place, some of the elementary levels, when you hit high school and you're selecting into advanced placement classes, there are no restrictions of homework. So if you have 3 AP classes, you could have an hour of homework per class. And we have students with 5 APs. Well, that has less to do with sleep and more to do with the rigorous schedule that they're selecting into and the families and the students are choosing. Now, could we block the number of APs? I'd say no in this community. No, we couldn't. But have we put some barriers in place and some restrictions? And do our counselors and our administrators talk about balance and mental health? Absolutely. Those are all very valuable conversations that are really important to have. But the academic course load doesn't change. And I have 5 kids, and I have 2 in college, 1 in high school, and 2 on their way towards middle school and high school. And these same challenges that you're talking about exist in every community. And so the homework, the academic load, if your child is in athletics or after-school activities, and now you change the start time to later, now obviously they're getting home later, so if they're in athletics, they might be 7, 8 o'clock by the time they're starting homework, 4 to 5 hours of homework, they're going to bed at 1, so if you change that start time by 1 hour, 45 minutes, you change to 8:30, like APA will suggest that you should think about an 8:30 start time. The reality is that they're not getting any more sleep. They're just getting, you're just changing when the window of sleep is. Now, some doctors will get into biorhythms and get into all that conversation about sleep patterns and whatnot, which I'm not going to get into right now. But there's arguments to be made for everything. But what we know is fundamentally the academic course load doesn't change, and you're just offsetting the sleep time. You're not really changing much about the actual sleep and the quality of sleep. We also know that if the board was to consider any kind of change, it does require consideration with respect to planning. Districts that have moved this have looked at upwards of 3 years of study, transportation studies, schedule studies, impact studies, asking for survey results from the community, then the difference of opinions that inevitably will come between high school, middle school parents and elementary parents, and then parents that are crossing both, because I could see it from both sides, from an elementary perspective and a high school perspective from a parent lens. And I'm sure those of you that have high schoolers can look back and say, yes, I get that could be challenging in elementary, but I'm looking at my kid today versus the challenge it might have been back then. It's a 2 to 3 year process at best. And Highland Park studied this for 2 to 3 years, and they made I think it was a 15-minute change at the end of the day. You should also just note that the length of day is different between high school and elementary, right? Slight time difference. Staff is there longer, but is equal amounts of time, but the amount of time the kids are in the building is different. So if you just look at the high school and the middle school right now and you go, oh, it's a 7:40 start, just shift it back to 8:30 and then let the kids go later. The challenge with that is in our community, because of the bus runs, you need 40 minutes between the end of a run to get all the buses back to another school for the next pickup, right? So if high school ends at 8:30, now they're finishing at 3:20. They're not getting back at 3:30 for the elementary pickup. It's the same buses. So you're in what's called a 2-tier bus system right now. They run the middle school and the high school, and then they run the elementary. If you don't have a two-tiered system, you have to go to one-tier busing. If you go to one-tier busing, now you're talking about doubling the transportation expenses for the district. And quite honestly, it would probably be a little bit higher than doubling because some of the routes would have to be rebid out and you probably get marked up prices. So you're probably looking at doubling plus 20%, another 21 million or so. So it's a significant investment that would require a bond, a referendum of the community. And then what I would say that police, safety officials, and others would say, well, there's concern right now. In fact, some folks in this room have raised concern about what happens when North and Community drop off at the same time. Well, imagine if Millstone River was there as well, right? And you have Millstone, CMS, and North all dropping off at the same time. And since we like to drop our kids and not use the buses, and I understand since the pandemic, we've seen an increase in parent drivers and more folks are working from home and whatnot with the Zoom world we're in, the reality is that the congestion and the traffic wouldn't work with one tier. So as you're thinking through the ideas, you have to think through the transportation and it's not as simple as 5 minutes off a period at the middle school and the high school. And if you shift back 30, 40, you impact the after-school runs. So there's all these different nuances and factors. So we've talked about this over time. We've worked with our transportation committee. We've worked with our administration. We've looked at it. We haven't found the pathway to, in a district this big that has majority of our students on buses, to come to the way that doesn't exponentially increase transportation without a bond and finds a way to shift this, short of taking the entire elementary and flipping it early or pushing it back late and causing complete disruption in the lives of our families that have children at those ages. So I appreciate there's a willingness to have this conversation, and I appreciate anyone who's interested in continuing that work to provide research or to think. When it comes to the actual research of the science, you're not going to find disagreement. There is science that says sleeping longer for kids. I know what it looks like for my teenager on the weekends, right? Especially if they don't have something to do. I may see them in the afternoon, right? Right. I get that as a parent. I'm sorry, sir. Just so you know, this is not a Q&A time period, and it's not. That's for the public comment. There may be opportunities another time, but not in this forum. So I do appreciate that. So you get the sense that it's a complicated issue, and the district is always looking for partners. And I would say that one of the places that we try to stick within structures that exist, and so we've always encouraged folks to go back to your PTAs and your PTSAs at your schools, engage with them through your building principals. They will engage with central office and administration. And then I'm sure this board will have follow-up conversations about the comments that were made this evening and anything that may be submitted. And as the board secretary, Dr. Russo, as the assistant superintendent for finance, if anyone brought something in writing that they wanted the board to see, you would submit that to him after your comments or later on. And we'll make sure it's distributed to the board. And you're welcome to email myself or the board members with respect to your comments or concerns or research or whatever has been compiled. So by no means is this a no. I just want you to know that it's complicated, and it has been something that we've thought about over time. So I appreciate you being here this evening.
Thank you, Dr. And just to let others know, if there is a second public comment portion of the meeting at the end, if you want to come back and speak at that point. Okay. Right, so moving along to the next items on the agenda, we have our committee reports. So I'll turn to Administration and Facilities Committee. Dana?
Hello, good evening. The Administration and Facilities Committee met on February 6th. We reviewed several policies for a first reading: P0152, Board Officers; P0161, Call Adjournment and Cancellations; and P0162, Notice of Board Meetings. The last one, we are not moving forward for a first reading. We recommend 3 regulations for a second reading and approval at tonight's board meeting. R8420.2, which is bomb threats; R8420.7, lockdown procedures; and R8420.10, which is active shooter. The committee reviewed the 2024-2025 academic calendar, and we recommend approval at tonight's board meeting. The committee got an update on referendum projects, construction projects at High School South, Community Middle School, and the High School North Dance Studio are closing out. Drywall and ceiling installation for the High School North Media Center and Culinary Arts Room continues with color selections for finishing underway. Punch list completion for Phase 1 construction at the Wyckoff School continues. Phase 2 demolition of the main office and media center is underway. HVAC work in the Millstone River School Media Center continues, as does electrical work for the Dutch Neck School Media Center. Next was an update on athletics. The winter sports season is winding down, and participation was up this season. High school spring athletic registration has been extended to tonight at 11 p.m., so you can go home and sign your children up. Spring sports are baseball, boys tennis, boys volleyball, girls and boys golf, girls and boys track and field, and girls and boys lacrosse, and softball is a co-op team, both north and south. That's at the high school level. The committee will next meet on March 21st.
Thank you, Dana. Any questions from board members? Okay. We'll now go to curriculum.
Thanks, Rachel. The Curriculum Committee met on February 21st. We began the meeting with Dr. Warren and Ms. Andrea Bean, who shared information about middle school moving to trimesters. Research was conducted and shared, as well as stakeholder groups consulted. Currently, our elementary schools already operate on a trimester schedule. No course offerings would change as a result of moving to trimesters in middle school, and the calendar would be adjusted for reporting grades 3 times a year versus 4 in the middle school. Next are items on the agenda to be voted on. First, to authorize the 5th year of a 5-year shared services agreement between West Windsor Township and the WWP Regional School District for cable television, originally approved February 19th, 2019. And the Curriculum Committee recommends approval of the service agreement. Second, the Curriculum Committee recommends approval for instructional coaching group to facilitate 2 professional development workshops for district teacher resource specialists on June 5th and 6th at a cost not to exceed $12,300. Next, high school program. The Curriculum Committee recommends approval of 1 high school student to enroll in an online course, Financial Literacy, Economics, New Jersey, at Educare LLC for the 22-23 school year at a cost not to exceed $199.50. Also, the Curriculum Committee recommends approval of the expenditures of the fiscal year 2023 NJ Non-Public School Technology Aid Initiative as follows: for French American School of Princeton for $3,607.16. Moving on to field trips, the Curriculum Committee recommends approval of the following overnight trips. First, for Community Middle School, the outdoor education to Camp Canadensis in Canadensis, Pennsylvania. I hope I pronounced that right. From June 7th through the 9th. The cost of the trip is approximately $230 per student. The second trip for Grover Middle School, outdoor education to Pine Forest Camp in Greeley, Pennsylvania, from the 5th of June through the 9th. The cost of the trip is approximately $300 per student. And the Curriculum Committee recommends approval of both these trips. The committee will next meet on Tuesday, March 21st. Thanks.
Thank you, Lloyd. Any questions from board members? Sure.
I'm just curious, at a high level, what the reasoning is behind moving to a trimester in the middle school level?
Yeah, at a high level, so many of the parents that have elementary children know elementary's been in a trimester with a standards-based report card, then the children shift to middle school, which has been quarters with academic grades. The committee had looked at the academic schedule as well as grades, as well as the length of the quarter, and felt that so within your special areas at the they have cycle electives within the middle school, and within the cycle electives there's 6 cycles, and those 6 cycles meet for 30-day increments. The grading window gets convoluted with, you get the first trimester, in the first quarter, you get the first of the 6, but you don't hear about second cycle until January, February. So and then on the academic side, we talk all about mental health and social emotional learning and getting to know our kids. And one of the things we felt was the first quarter is a very rushed process coming in for getting feedback. So now you go to 360-day windows instead of 445s. Because again, at the middle school, it used to be they met daily for 52. Now they meet every other day for 80. So when you're meeting every other day for 80 in a 45 quarter, you're only getting 22 days to get to know the kids. So now you have 30 days. So they just felt that going to the trimester with the academic grades is a nice compromise and transition. So from a high level, that was what was presented to the committees, representative students, parents, faculty members, administration, and they brought that forward. And then both Ms. Bean as well as Ms. Warren came to the committee as representatives of the administration to present it. Both Grover and CMS administrations supported as well. And it's been presented to both faculties, and we've had really nice feedback.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you, Dr. Adderholm. Any other questions? Okay, we'll move to finance. Louisa?
Sure, thank you. The Finance Committee met on February 22nd. The committee met with representatives from Snyder Electric to discuss a possible second energy savings improvement project now that the first is complete. This would include possible new solar arrays. The committee discussed possible sites. The committee asked for ground view pictures of completed projects. Administrative staff pointed out that Robbinsville has installed these in some of their school parking lots if school board members would like to take a look. The committee reviewed the agenda items for the February 24th board meeting. The committee reviewed the monthly financial reports. The budget is tracking very similarly to prior years, and the administration certifies that there is sufficient funding to complete the year. There is a motion to accept the 21-22 audit report and a motion to approve contracting with the current auditor to perform the 22-23 annual audit. There is a motion on the agenda to approve the installation of the second phase of the fire alarm system by Open Systems Integrators at Wyckoff. This is part of the Phase 2 construction at Wyckoff. There is a motion to approve the submittal for regular operating district grants. This is on the agenda again because we need to correct the listing of the architect's name. There is a motion to approve one new bus route, and we are approving professional development for an administrator. Administration updated the committee on their progress on the 23-24 budget. Due to inflation, transportation and health care have large increases. The district qualifies for spending growth limitation adjustment for the health care increase. Staff recommend using a third of it for the 23-24 budget and banking the spending authority for the subsequent years. More information will be presented at upcoming board meetings. At our March 14th board meeting, we will need to vote to submit the budget to the County Office of Education for their review. Staff provided updates on district construction. Phase 1 of the Wyckoff expansion project was mostly complete. The next step is reviewing punch list items. Phase 2 of construction at Wyckoff will be starting shortly with the contractor and HVAC contractor mobilizing. The second phase of the fire alarm replacement will coincide with the Phase 2 construction work. At High School North, training for the operation of the HVAC and lighting in the High School North Dance Studio will occur this week. The High School North Media Center renovation work continues with framing and drywall installation, along with the installation of the metal door, window frame, and ductwork. The Culinary Arts Lab renovation continues with the cutting of the concrete slab for infrastructure work. At South, in the Robotics Lab, final work is being completed to meet the requirements of final inspection. At the Dutch Neck Media Center, the above-ceiling electrical work is near completion. Once completed, the ceiling grid will be painted and new tiles installed. Doors for Dutch Neck and Millstone River that had been delayed are expected to be shipped from the manufacturer shortly. The administration has been meeting with design professionals to discuss the renovations of the libraries in Hawk Town Center and Village. Administration also updated the committee on capital projects. The pool bubble is installed at High School South. Unfortunately, an inspection revealed a few items that need to be remediated prior to final approval. Administration provided an update on food service for the month of January. The number of breakfasts and lunches served in January increased from December, and this is expected because there were more school days in January than December. The district received bids for a new walk-in box and new walk-in refrigerator at South. The food service operation has spent $154,000 of the $412,000 of the local Food for Schools Supply Chain Assistant Funds entitlement. The district continues to purchase items that meet the criteria for the funding. The funds are not required to be spent in one fiscal year, so they will be continued to be used into next year. At Millstone, an elementary school parent offered to donate $3,000 to offset unpaid school lunch charges for students of that school. Next, the committee discussed transportation issues. There is a motion on the agenda to approve a route for 2 displaced students living in Trenton. There were transportation issues with the touchdown of a tornado on Tuesday. One of the tornadoes touched down right in the path of one of our elementary buses with students on it, requiring the driver to both avoid the tornado and flying debris. Other business, we have none. The committee will next meet on Tuesday, March 7th.
Thank you, Louisa. Are there any questions from board members? Okay, so we'll now move to the voting portion of our meeting. Can I have a motion for administration items 1 to 8 plus the purple addendum, Dana and Liz? Any questions or comments? Okay, Chris?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Bonstow.
Yes.
Hold on a second. Excuse me. Ms. George Cheniera.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes. Okay, we'll now move to curriculum items. Can I have a motion for curriculum items 1 through 5? Loy and Pooja. Any questions or comments? Chris?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Cheniera.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich.
Yes.
Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes. Right. Can I now have a motion for finance items 1 through 14 plus the blue addendum? Louisa and Graylin. Any questions or comments? Yep, sure, Dana.
The donation that Louisa just mentioned and that we're about to vote on, I would like to express gratitude and appreciation to the West Windsor family who has made this generous donation. In the WWP community, we have families who are food insecure, and we have about 5% of our student population on free and reduced lunch. Through this donation, Millstone River will be able to partially fund the lunch balance accrued by families unable to pay for lunch for their children. If any family needs support in this area, please reach out to building administration where your child attends. Free and reduced lunch applications can be completed and submitted at any time during the school year. And again, this is a most kind and generous donation. We appreciate the contribution.
Thank you, Dana. Any other questions or comments? Okay, Chris?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yep.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich.
Yes.
Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Ms. Cheniera.
Yes.
Ms. McEwen.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes. Okay, we're now going to move to the discussion of the proposed 2023-2024 budget. So I'll turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent of Finance, Dr. Russo.
Okay, I'd like to give a brief presentation on the 23-24 budget. The governor made his budget address today. In 2 days, we should receive our state aid allocations. According to his address today, it should be, I don't believe there's any reason to worry that it won't be what we anticipate it to be. The budget process, is something that it takes many months. Quite frankly, when this budget ends, we will start working on next year's budget pretty much right away. Conversations start. So the first There's not a thing that we do when we talk about the budget that doesn't take the mission statement into thought. Building upon tradition of excellence, the mission of West Windsor-Plainsboro Regional School District is to empower all learners to thoughtfully contribute to a diverse and changing world with confidence, strength, character, and love of learning. What's a proposed budget? What is a school budget? It's a planning tool. It considers contingencies. It manages risk. It has to be financially responsible. It's a reflection of the local values, and it must consider safeguards and buffers. Budget process and timelines. In summer and fall, Finance Committee, the first discussions start. Administration and Finance starts talking about capital projects. Curriculum Committee, discussion of program of studies. That starts right away in the summer and in the fall. Because remember, this budget goes into effect in the first month of the fiscal year, which is July. December, BOE meetings. We start talking about the budget. Mid-year budget review happens with the county office, where they review the current year budget with us and how it's tracking and how things are moving forward with that. November through February, we have meetings with budget managers at the administrative level. We constantly have meetings. February 28th, January through March, BOE public budget discussions as of tonight. I'm sharing where we are currently. February 28th, the governor's address. In 2 days, we'll have our state aid numbers. March 14th, as mentioned earlier, we'll adopt a budget to submit to the county office for their review. And on April 25th, after they review it, they'll review it, return it. If there's any changes to be made, we'll make them. Typically, there aren't, but if there are, we'll make them at the April 25th public hearing. So when we're putting a budget together, it starts with the revenues, even though we don't know the revenues. And I shouldn't say it starts with that. I'm the finance guy. In my head, it starts with that. Everyone else, it starts with the education program and what's happening. I'm constantly thinking about finances, so therefore, I'm constantly trying to think how I can reduce our expenditures in the coming year, and what are we going to be, what's the most we can go with, because we have caps on what we can do. So there's a 2% tax levy cap was put in place years ago. Healthcare adjustments. The state put out a 15% healthcare adjustment for state employees. The number is high as 23%. It probably should have been. I believe municipal officials were much closer to that, municipal governments. Ours came in around a 9% increase. But what we can get out of that is with the healthcare adjustment, the calculation, we can take that difference, the percentage of that difference of the 15% and the 9%, there's a calculation that comes out. So it works out to $2.2 million that we created a healthcare adjustment. Now that is called a spending growth limitation adjustment, and that allows us additional taxing authority. It's just authority, it's not actual money. So we're requesting to use 1/3 of that in this year's budget. We're allowed to spread it out over 2 subsequent years. So given the fact that there may be no healthcare adjustment next year, the only other spending growth limitation adjustment is for enrollment growth, and it's 10% in enrollment growth in 1 year. And that would be pretty hard to hit, and we don't want to hit that. So we're asking for 1/3 of the spending growth limitation adjustment for healthcare, which is $743,000 to be added to this year's budget. Banked cap of $1.48 million goes to subsequent years. That will be available. Budget stressors. These are typical in any year. In any given year, any of these can change as the #1 stressor or the top 1 or 2 stressors. Special services, we have tuition increases. Facilities, we have custodial contract renewal plus additional square footage with the growth of the buildings. Healthcare costs, the inflation in healthcare is as high as anywhere. It's above 8%. State educator health plan. Senate President Sweeney a couple years ago agreed with the NJEA and came together on a healthcare plan called Chapter 44. It was supposed to reduce costs to districts and the school employees both. What happened was they used only the state healthcare numbers, not districts that were fiscally responsible prior to that, and got out of the state health plan and sought other negotiated state health care. We went out on our own and we obtained health care outside the state health plan, which was cheaper than the plan. So we've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars due to Chapter 44. This last half year change was we lost $150,000 in co-premium from staff. In the prior year, or the first year, it was over $400,000 that we've lost. But that's the law. We're following the law. It's Chapter 44. Staffing needs, special education program growth, transportation. We all know what it's like to go to the fuel pump. So 5.86% CPI renewal is allowed this year. All of our vendors, the state dictates what our transportation vendors are allowed to renew our contracts at. They came up with a number this year of 5.86. That goes back 18 months prior. And if you go back 18 months prior, inflation had not hit 8% yet. So we can anticipate going next year that number will be closer to 8%. Kind of scary. We have additional routes. We found out mid-year that because of one of our jointures, we joined with other districts, and we're going through a special services district, that they renewed their routes, and the routes were approximately $800,000 more than they were last year once we got in. Plus, there's some additional routes, but going through that service, which was the only service that was out there that could handle the routes, created that mid-year stressor. Salary increases. We have negotiations this year. Enough said. Technology. We have licensing and equipment refresh. So they're all stressors. So here's an example of some numbers. It really doesn't mean much because they're large numbers, and I'll share a little bit at the end. Regular programs for regular education instruction, we have an anticipated increase of $1.1 million. That's literally in salaries and supplies. Special education tuition is $653. That's additional special ed and tuition. That's pretty much salaries and additional cost of tuition, and because of additional numbers of students. Athletics and activities, that's stipends, the increase in activity and athletic stipends. Educational support, that's salaries. Some of that's reclassification of technology staff into the educational support lines. Improvement of instruction and training, that's salaries. Administration and technology. That's a $16,000 decrease. That's pretty much because of some of that redistribution of salaries that I mentioned into the educational support line. Pretty much is where that comes from. Operations and maintenance, a $300,000 increase at this time. Again, ABM, additional square footage. ABM is our subcontractor for cleaning. You've heard me use that term a couple times. Transportation, 5.86%, additional special ed routes, and additional increase. That number just 2 years ago was $13 million. That's how transportation costs have increased over the last several years. So transportation's been the #1 stressor the last several years. Pension and benefits, that's the PERS members. We pay their benefits, and our health care increase at 9%. Next slide, capital reserve and capital outlay projects. This slide will look different in the coming months only because we'll reconcile where a couple of the projects are now. So one of the projects that we're submitting for, we submitted tonight in the addendum, is for a project number for a Century Playground at Town Center in the amount of $500,000. We're looking to replace the roof at Town Center, a $2.6 million complete restore. Part of the reason we're really pushing for that, well, it's out of warranty, but we want a new roof on that is because we want to get solar on that roof. That roof has less roof penetrations and mechanical equipment on top of it than any roof. So that'll be a great solar project in the coming year or two. CMS Energy emergency radio tower. We need an additional transmitter inside for emergency rescue. High School North sanitary main replacement. Everything's working fine currently, but there is some damage to the line, so we're going to replace it while we have the chance. And Wyckoff gym moisture, there's some moisture in the walls and on the floor, so we're going to go after that and clean that up. And then we have an annual building and grounds for projects budget of $1,087,500. That's for your typical concrete work during the summers, asphalt. You've seen that painting, all that sort of stuff that goes on. So that's where that comes on. All this money comes out of Fund 12. So out of capital reserve, which is one of the reserves you heard the auditor mention, we're going to ask to pull $4.2 million out, and you combine that with the general fund of $1,087,000, that'll be $5,349,000 for projects. And that's the end of the presentation. Any questions from the board?
Thank you, Dr. Russo. Any questions from board members? All right. Thank you, Dr. Russo.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the personnel item. Can I have a motion for personnel items 1 and 2, plus the green, pink, and yellow addendums? Robin and Shweta. Any questions or comments? Chris?
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. Maliga.
Yes.
Ms. Shetty.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich.
Yes.
Ms. Bonsall.
Yes.
Ms. Chiniera.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. McKeown.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes. I just want to acknowledge on the personnel agenda tonight, we had some retirements. So just want to acknowledge those. We have Eric Becker, school counselor from High School North, retiring after 26 years in the district. Axel Thyram, a teacher of social studies at High School North, retiring after 27 years in the district. And Beverly Wilkinson, who is a secretary from Millstone River, retiring after 21 years in the district. So just want to thank all of you for your years of service and dedication to our district, and the best of luck to all of you on your retirement. Okay, so we'll now move on to approval of our Board of Ed minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? Pooja and Dana. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay. Any board liaison reports? Any new business? Okay. So that takes us to the second opportunity for public comments. The board invites comments from members of our community who are present. Each participant is asked to give his or her name and address prior to making a statement, which will be limited to 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. This public comment period shall be limited to 15 minutes. Are there any public comments?
My name is Pratik. I live in 14 Normandy Drive, West Windsor. I'm a father of 2 daughters. One is entering middle school next year, and another one is entering the high school next year. When we heard about the problem of late start as a whole, like solving it is not as simple as we are talking about it. So I took some notes, and the thing that I noticed is that if we talk about the problem as a whole, we might never be able to solve it. So I want to zoom down on the one part of the problem that seems the biggest is the transportation without impacting the elementary schools. How can we do? Either we make a parallel shift so that late start and late end, or we scooch the timeline where we make a late end, same end but the late start. However we do it, how can we do it without impacting the primary or elementary school? So with that respect, I had 2 questions, and you don't have to answer it right now. But I just want to propose these 2 questions to the board. One is that what level of consensus you require from the parent community to get this, at least this discussion started in this direction. So let's say 50%, 51%, or 1,000, so that we can start a petition and we can at least start the discussion toward that direction. And second, we are also hearing that there is this mandate going on the state side, which is going to require all the New Jersey schools to have the late start for the middle and the high school. So if that happens, then the transportation as a whole, the funding issue or the doubling the bus, how we'll be able to solve that if that happens. Right now, I know that is a problem, but if state mandates that, then how it is going to happen. And above all, I'm just here to say that whatever we do here, we as a parent community here is willing to help in this problem solving process. So anything that we can do to help you, we are more than happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Good evening, all. My name is Milind Manurkar. I live at 15 Slayback Drive, West Windsor. About this late start, a few questions that I have. Again, it's up to you. You can answer, or you could just take the questions, and then, we would wait to hear back from you at a later point of time. So, having said that, I saw there was some capital reserves being set aside. So is there any thought process given to conduct school district its own survey and come up with the issues that you find are major issues that cannot be addressed versus could be some logistical issues that can be addressed? So that was first question. Second question is coming down to some of the good points that Dr. Adderhold has made it in the previous comment where he said for the high schoolers, for the credits, you cannot cut down the time. So in that aspect, the questions are basically like if we could just cut down the timing for elementary and middle schoolers while we keep the same time school period for the high schoolers, however, make the first period for the high schoolers as an optional or excused kind of a, option given. That's something that, I just wanted to bring it to your attention and see if that's a feasible option or is that, again, might be a challenge. So these are some of the questions that I just wanted to bring up here. And thank you all for all the support and help and all the work that you guys are doing. However, definitely like the previous parent has mentioned, like, every problem, there's always a problem, but at the same time, collectively, we can address it and resolve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments?
Hi, my name is Debbie Baer, and I'm a member of the faculty and the Teachers Association. And I waited till the second round of comments because I wanted to make sure you approved the outdoor ed program. And I looked for my outdoor ed book, and I think my sister has mine and I have hers. So in 1978, my sister went on outdoor ed, and we still have our outdoor ed books. So it's a very, very meaningful program. If you had any doubts about it, I applaud you for approving it. Apparently, my sister won third place in 2 events, and she learned quite a bit about limnology. There's some creative work in here, but it has held up well because we got to make our covers. Someone donated them. If you want to know the history on the outdoor ed program, I would be happy to share it, but I want to compliment you very much on approving it. It's a fantastic program.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Should I introduce myself again?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Deepa Subramanian from Plainsboro. Back on the topic of late start, I really appreciate the comments and the way you put forth all the problems that we have. But where we tried as a parent community to probably solution, obviously we're not experts at all. I think one gentleman also mentioned if the first period for high school could be probably study hall where, they get to do brainstorming, homework, whatever. If that was substituted as the first period, then they could also walk in, say, with some flexibility, if that could be considered. And otherwise, we wanted to check if we had some innovative ideas, if we could reach it out to you all with the scheduling, how should it work?
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments?
Makran Bedwai, Princeton, New Jersey. Again, evening greetings. I want to go back and bring up Ms. Kanetkar mom's problem. What counts should not count, and what doesn't count should count. The fact here is, and I want to read a little statement from, if I can get to it, the Scientific American, that there will be mountains in trying to move around school schedules, but they can be climbed. That's one thing. Then I want to connect it with something else here, that the survey idea is a good idea. The superintendent has been all out during the referendum doing town halls. I encourage him to start town halls right in March. That's a good way of connecting with the community. And more importantly, I think I'm going to tie the superintendent's hand and we will have a checkmate tonight. The way this works is the superintendent is on record in the New York Times. I tried to call that that lady, Miss Kyle Spencer, but she said, everybody is doing late start, so this is no more news. And your district will have to do it now or do it tomorrow, but they will do it. But I am encouraging the superintendent to read his comments that he was worried about stress for the parents, and he eliminated elementary grade advanced math. All these parents are complaining about stress, and shouldn't we eliminate the first 50 minutes? I mean, it's time to introspect. Let's do it. Yes, he can do it. Where there is a will, there is a way. And we all will show you the way too. But we'll all work as a team. So let's get together in a town hall in every school and let's start the process. And I'm putting a deadline. Let's do it by the middle of August or middle of July. It can be done, sir, madams. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? None? Okay. Just one last check before I close the public comment portion.
Madam President?
Yes.
Just one of the gentlemen that spoke just had asked if the pending legislation did pass, how would that impact?
Sure.
That if it's okay, that is something I could possibly address a little bit.
Yes, please.
So, if the pending legislation is passed, it will, as you heard from Dr. Adderholt's comments, definitely have a cost factor for school districts, where they're talking about requiring the mandated late starts and the resulting domino effects that it will have on the start times for other schools and the increase in the transportation costs. New Jersey does have a non-appointed body called the Council of Unfunded Mandates, meaning if the state is going to impose something and there's going to be an increased cost, the state has to pay for that. So, sir, I would just posit that if this legislation this mandate does move through, possibly one hurdle that the legislation is finding is the cost factor that is being assigned to it in the legislatures, because they have to give an estimated cost. So I'm guessing that is kind of factoring in. So that's maybe why that legislation has stalled a little bit, because they, as Dr. Adderholt noted, the Department of Education didn't even run the pilot program, understandably so, considering what happened in March of 2020. But that is something, so if there is a mandate, hopefully there's state dollars attached to it, and so some of these concerns may address themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Toscano. So just officially, the public comment portion is closed, and so
Thank you to Mr. Toscano for raising that. I was also going to speak to the legislation. To my knowledge, that has not moved out of committee. And just so the public's aware, the way this legislation works is it has to be raised in both the Senate and the Assembly. It starts with the sponsors, usually the sponsors committee. So Senator Gopal, he's chair of the Education Senate Ed Committee. So most likely it would go there. It would have to move out of committee. It would most likely get referred to the Finance for an analysis and cost benefit before it moves to the full Senate. A companion bill could happen in the Assembly, or the Senate could approve it and then send it to the Assembly. The Assembly never needs to post it. Or it could go to committee and move forward. So it depends on the will of the legislature with respect to that. At this point, it hasn't moved out of committee, so there's really nothing to talk about with respect to a mandate. There is interest. We've seen lots of areas of interest go in front of the Assembly or the Senate and then never move. It's also possible that it moves fast. So, you know, I have spoken in front of both the Joint Committee on Public Schools as well as the Senate Ed as well as the Assembly Ed committees over time, and sometimes policies move forward. I just spoke about high school graduation assessments. As a lot of high school parents are in the audience, if you have a junior, you should be concerned, because as of right now, the NJGPA is a high stakes mandate with a arbitrary cut score of a 750, which changed the standard deviation, and 60% of the state failed the language arts and 50% failed the mathematics last year. So, you know, I'd be concerned about that if you're a parent of a junior, and working to get that removed as a legislative mandate. That would be an area of immediate focus for your kids as well, that we could use your help. With respect to some of the other comments, one was about capital reserve dollars. You are not able to use cap reserve dollars for items such as like conducting a survey. Those are specific to cap reserve is utilized for facility related expenses. So there would be other funding mechanisms if the board was going to engage in that kind of work, but it wouldn't be through cap reserve. So it doesn't mean it can't be done through different funding source, it's just not through that process. So I just wanted to clear that up. Some of this would need some consideration with respect to, I spoke to the mandate, spoke to the cap reserve. Thanks for the outdoor ed book, Deb. And the part with respect to stress. Yeah, in 2015, I went out pretty big in this community talking about stress. And we were right to do that then and speak about it now. I've spoken about it for years. And have worked significantly to talk about culture and climate in our schools, have put mental health clinicians in our schools, have increased the number of counselors and nurses, have completed training upon training to our staff, worked with an incredible team of educators to do that. We have over 200 mental health first aid certified educators in our community. The majority of our coaches are. We put security and safety mechanism. You know, it's disingenuous at best to try to relate what happened in 2015 to start time today. It's a reach at best. And happy to talk to Ms. Spencer at any time. But you know, the community didn't like being on the front page of the New York Times, nor did we ask for them to be there. We were there because we had over 100 kids with suicidal ideations and hospitalization back in 2014-15. And we decided to say something about it to our community to raise the concern. And our parent community was concerned too. They saw the stress. They listened to the issues. It got conflated with honors and accelerated or A&E mathematics changes as a way to say we were dumbing down. If you look at what WWP stands for in the academic excellence that our community upholds and our school district reaches to support, and our children, our students are amazing at what they do academically. No one can say we work to dumb down public education in West Windsor-Plainsboro. We've held a high standard, but we've tried to do it with respect and balance. And to say that we don't care about mental health because we haven't moved on start time is disingenuous. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Dr. Adderholm. So before we adjourn, I just wanted to, again, just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight and for respectfully advocating for the positions that you did. So I really appreciate that you took time out of your busy schedules to come out here. So thank you for that. I do also want to just say, you know, that we understand where you're coming from. You know, I'm sure, as you can see, board members are all parents. Dr. Adderholm is a parent. All the board members are moms. If you haven't noticed, we're all female. So we're all moms. A lot of us do have middle school and high school students who are either in school now or have gone and graduated. But so a lot of what you're describing, many of us, we get it. We go through the same things. I don't think anyone, as Dr. Adderhold already said, would argue the health benefits, all right, that you've always talked about, getting more sleep, and the impact on stress. So I don't think there's anyone at this table who's going to argue any of those issues. But as you heard, there are a lot of logistical issues that need to be factored in and considered with this type of change. It's a complex situation. It's a complex review, and there's a lot of factors that need to be looked at. So I just want to, I'm glad that you're all here and that we were able to explain a lot of that, but I just wanted to, again, thank you so much for coming out and telling us how you feel about this topic. And we will be taking into consideration the comments that you've made tonight, so thank you. I would, can I get a motion then to adjourn? Loy and Pooja, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you again, everyone, for coming out.